All right. It is, we're at 7 minutes before 3, but the hardcore people, the important people are here already, right?
Right on.
And Rob's got a question about his Neptune.
Yeah, I've had it in the water. In fact, I was working with Sub-Ed when he had his part on the table and he showed all of his weights and everything. And so we kind of corresponded back and forth. So I got it all set up. When she's in the water, she looks great. You can take it down, a static dive, and get it down, like just above the
dome.
sail.
Yeah.
And then if I get down another 10 or so inches, all of a sudden signal is gone. She sinks to the bottom of the pool. And could that be blamed on core? I've double checked the battery. It's fully charged. The transmitter's fully charged. Would chlorination have that kind of an effect on that antenna inside that sub?
It absolutely could, but what's worrying to me is that that boat has a failsafe in it. In theory, if you have that ballast tank flooded and you turn off your transmitter, it should cycle the ballast tank automatically and bring it back up.
It doesn't need a signal in.
No,
Okay.
it's built into the board, okay. So that if it loses signal, it should blow ballast and bring that thing back up. So there's two parts to your question. The first one, I've been in swimming pools where I lose signal in a foot easily. It depends how badly it's been shocked, and especially public swimming pools, they just dump like by the 5-gallon bucket, in there.
All those Hershey bars have to be countered.
Yeah. Yes. But then the second part, like you said, it should not just placidly, continue its journey to the depths. It should say, whoops, I've got no signal. I'd better get myself back up to the surface.
Okay, well then I'll go in and check all that and make sure, I'm operating it properly, because that might be part of it too. So
it's possible. And I would bench test it. Vent ballast, so pump it full of water, and then turn off your transmitter and check and see if it does begin that reverse cycle to bring it back up. And if not, then it's an issue with the control board.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll try that. That's a good idea. And all I'd have to do is fill the tank full of water on my bench.
I don't even think it's not that smart. I think all you need to do is
just cycle, go in the fail-safe.
Yeah, just cycle the ballast tank. What'll happen, because it's got a peristaltic pump. What it'll do is, rather than filling it with water, it'll fill it with air.
Okay.
And then, like I said, if you turn off your transmitter, it should, in theory, reverse that pump and pump all that air back out again.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll try that, because it's starting to cool down here now. So one of these days I can get it out again.
That would be nice. We had a little bit of a thunderstorm here earlier, but it's still over 100.
Yeah, we're in for another hot weekend, 114.
That's not
supposed to start the downhill slide here. So
I will say Casey has been doing a good job about updating us for the weather. He sent an email out. He said for forecast for Subfest next week, 80 degrees and sunny.
Yeah.
Wasn't looking that good a couple of weeks ago, but then
no, he was rubbing our nose. He's like, looks like your luck ran out. It's like thunderstorms and
well, what do you expect 2 weeks in? What kind of a forecast is that?
Well, and I was talking with Donna Davis, the owner of the resort, and I was asking her what it was like, and she's just going to be beautiful. It's like, it was beautiful last week, it's beautiful this week, it'll be beautiful next week. But she said the water is the best she's seen it. She said it's better than it was last year.
Oof.
Yep.
Oof.
Yeah. So keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, I've been running through all the towed and mounted cameras. They're all up to speed. So we'll contribute our little portion of your next video.
Awesome.
And Fred Fraketic will be doing the flyovers with his drone. So you'll be covering
Nice.
that.
Yeah, I'll be bringing mine too. I don't know. I had a little bit of an opportunity, I think, last year to run mine, or the year before. I got some really neat footage, but I didn't have any time last year.
Yeah. Well, you're a busy camper. So
Fixing people's boats, right? Right, Jason? Fixing Howard's 212.
Yeah, that took some time. Yeah.
yeah, I've been kind of enslaved to a couple of friends who needed help.
I like the terminology. Yeah.
Aren't you always?
Yeah, Ken.
Well, sometimes I mean, you offered when that Nautilus smashed the stern off my blueback. You're the one that offered to get it back into fighting trim again.
Now there's an idiot born every minute.
Oh wait, no, it was before that. There was an issue. It was the ballast tank vent wasn't working or something, and you got that fixed. And then promptly a minute after it was in the water, then it got smashed and the stern got knocked off. That's what happened.
You are cursed.
That poor boat, you know.
That's
Right.
the one that you recovered with that little ROV, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
That was pretty slick.
Not that we needed it because I could see it from shore. Warren made it. Good to see you, Warren. We got our normal crew going on. That's awesome.
Yeah. Appreciate the heads up on the email.
Well, yeah, of course. I usually do.
And when you don't, we let you know.
Bob,
Well,
and
other time we still appreciate it.
what's that?
Like I said, even though Bob sends an email all the time, we still appreciate it.
Bob and Dave, maybe you can help me out a little bit here. I'm trying to trim the sea view out, and I'm doing it the method where you flood the tank completely, and I want to get about an inch of conning tower sticking up. So I get it close, but I'm trying to get it level. So as soon as I put, let's say that the stern is down, I put some foam and it got it up. Okay. And then, wait a minute. I didn't put the foam in yet. I put some weight on the front and the stern came up, but the nose went down a little bit. I took off 1 ounce of weight and the stern went all the way down again. And 1 ounce of weight is just incredible difference. And the submarine is 8.5 feet long.
So
You muted yourself, right? There you
Am I
go.
doing something wrong that is so sensitive to 1 ounce of weight?
no, 1 ounce in my world is a lot. In your world, it's adequate.
Yeah.
So
it is. It's not 1 ounce is a lot. So that's the equivalent of 4 blocks of those self-adhesive weights. And the thing you might think, oh, it's an 8.5 foot boat, but what you've got to remember is that from the center of the boat to the end is 4 feet, and so the arm that weight has is 4 feet long. It's like having a 4-foot extension on your ratchet wrench. You can put a lot of torque through that wrench.
Yeah, I noticed that it's where I put the weight too.
Yeah. So if you put that weight a little closer to the center, it'll be less sensitive to the changes. But of course, then it might not be enough.
Well,
Right.
you're already at 1 inch in submerged trim, so you don't want any more weight. Put some foam in the ass end.
Okay. Yeah, I had some foam, but it brought it up high. So I was trying to get it level again. So I put some weight on the foam, and the
No,
1 ounce made a big freaking.
cut the foam in half and move it a little bit farther aft than it was before. You've increased the moment arm, so you
Yeah.
have riding force, but
Yeah.
you have less overall buoyancy, so you won't be bobbing up.
Okay, so there is a point on the ship that's the balancing point
The balancing
underwater.
when you want the boat to be statically stable in pitch, roll pretty well takes care of itself. The center of gravity, the center of mass, has to be on a vertical line with the center of
Yep.
buoyancy. Center of buoyancy high, center of gravity low, but sharing the same vertical axis. That is a state of equilibrium as far as static stability goes. Now that all is shot asunder as soon as you get underway, because then hydrodynamic forces, either contributed to by surface effect or bottom effect or hull shape or appendages, all of a sudden you need active control. That's where you get your stern planes in the game. But to be statically stable, and that's where you're at now, Frank, is that you're trimming the boat out. You're starting to trim in submerged trim. That's my preferred way. Once you got the thing sitting level with about an inch, in your case, I'd say 2 to 3 inches, because it's a big boat.
You mean difference between the front and the back, 2 or 3 inches?
No.
No.
The height, the water line in submerged trim is at the top of the sail, correct?
It's an inch below the top of the sail, the water line.
In your case, I'd make it 2 to 3 inches below the top of the sail. Just
Okay,
to have a reserve, because that's a big ass boat.
yeah,
Okay, so get it in submerged trim where it's sitting level. So you've achieved your static stability, and then you blow the ballast tank and you see where it's sitting. Is it as high as it's going to get and still be on an even keel? That's when you start moving your foam vertically from its present position. You don't add or subtract any foam, and you don't move it forward or aft. You just move its relative heights to the designed water line. All right, that comes later. Get it trimmed and submerged trim first. Bob
Okay.
is approach.
Yeah, and they both work. The one thing that I will note on this is when you're in submerged trim, in the way that I do it, I do surface first and then submerged. But weight is applicable in both surface and submerged trim. So if you put a weight in, it's going to affect it in both states. But with foam, you've got that flexibility of above and below water line. So if it's above the surface water line, it only comes into play when it's in submerged trim. So just bear that in mind. If you get everything trimmed out perfectly surfaced and then you're trying to trim submerged, I wouldn't use weights. I would use foam, because that weight is going to screw up your surface, and then you're going to be playing this. Oh, I fixed my bottom, now I got to go to my top. Oh shoot, now I fixed my top, I got to go back to my bottom, and it's this never-ending circle of pain.
yeah. The first time I trimmed this out last year, I did it your way, surface and then down, and it was fine. Then I changed some things in the boat and I had to retrim it. When I got to Groton, it ran fine on the surface, but I couldn't submerge it because one of the pumps wasn't priming. So I changed some stuff. I was trying to get that straight now. But Dave's method sounds good to me too, because I'm sure I have a little bit of positive buoyancy. If something goes wrong, it's going to pop up to the conning tower, 2, 3 inches.
Yep, sure.
So that's what I was trying to achieve, but I can't get it to get level. It's like you move one little thing and it's like, what the hell did I do? So I understand him now with lining up the center of gravity and the center of buoyancy. So I'll try that next.
Yeah.
I remember the picture in your book now, but
and honestly, a perfectly trimmed, statically stable submarine is the objective. But like Dave mentioned, everything goes to hell as soon as you start moving through the water. So you can, and it's very, very rarely that you're going to have your submarine parked, submerged, and not moving. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's important to make sure that more than anything else, the boat is stable while in operation.
All right, since we're talking about trimming a boat out, I have a question. On my Marlin, it's perfectly trimmed, surface and below the surface, and it's been running like that for years. I decided that it needed some more weight in the boat because as it leaned over, as it was going around a turn on the surface, the sail, because of the weight that I have in the sail for the radar and other stuff, it leans quite a bit. So I added 8 ounces of weight to it, and I also added a lot of foam as much as I could below the waterline. So I have the boat set up surfaced in the bathtub. And then as I went to submerge the boat, I found out that I had to remove foam above the waterline in order to get it back down to the 1-inch level. So that confused me. I thought would have to add foam above the waterline and below the waterline by adding 8 ounces of weight to the boat. But I was going to ask somebody at Subfast, or David at Subfast, but since we're talking about it, that confused me a little bit about, having to add foam in the bottom, and which I understood, and removing foam above the waterline.
All right, the boat is stable as it is in submerged trim.
Yes.
That is to say, just a portion of the sail sticking out of the water.
Yes.
And what's the problem when it's in surface trim?
I think he said there was nothing wrong in surface trim.
I'm confused I'm confused about the point where, before doing all this, it was perfectly trimmed in both situations, above and below.
All right, let's cut through all that. The problem is you were heeling because your metacentric height was so short.
Yes.
Say the center of gravity and center of buoyancy were too closely coupled.
Right.
All right. You wanted to increase the stability about the roll axis.
Yes.
You're also increasing it about the pitch axis. You've done the right thing. You've added weight low. You've added foam high. You've increased the distance, the vertical distance between the center of mass and center of buoyancy. That's good.
Right.
Now, what's the problem?
I had to remove foam above the waterline when I added the weight. Why did I have to remove foam and not add foam?
All right. Is all that added foam above the design waterline?
No. The foam that I added was below the waterline.
All right, you got to get it above the waterline.
Okay, back to the tub.
Yeah.
But wait, no. If I added foam above the waterline, then on the surface trim, it would be down. It would be the waterline level would be below where it's supposed to be.
The point is,
be above.
the bottom of that foam is going to be at the waterline.
Right.
As soon as you heel over, you're going to immerse that side of the foam, which will counter the heel.
Okay.
You take a look at a ship in a turn, it always heels outboard of the turn, right?
Right.
Well, that side of the ship starts getting immersed more than the other side, and it starts to right itself. All right. So when you put that foam up in the superstructure, put it so that the bottom of the foam is right at the waterline.
Right.
As soon as it tips one way or the other, and by that I mean rolls one way or the other, you're going to start immersing that foam, which will counter the heel.
Gotcha. Okay. Right. That makes sense.
You're damn right.
Dave, I have a question. What if you change the density of the foam?
Well, all you've done is you either need more foam or less foam. Let's make sure we're talking about closed cell foam that doesn't over time saturate with water like a sponge.
Okay. Because
you can get
your point of density, I use Ren Shape, the lightweight stuff, as foam. It's a little bit denser, if you will, per unit volume. It's a little bit heavier, but not by much, than common closed cell polyurethane foam. So yeah, that's denser stuff, but I use it.
with a higher density foam, you'll require more foam to do the same amount of work than the less dense foam, but it'll be less prone to deformation or damage.
So if you're dealing with a very tight area like Ken is dealing with his sail, then wouldn't you change the density of the foam so that you could get more buoyancy?
In other
Yeah.
words, a less dense foam.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
You probably could, but and Dave, you probably know this, but I mean, we're talking about a tenth of a gram probably of weight. You know, the difference between a medium density and a high density closed cell foam. You know, if there are massive volumes of it, then maybe it would make a difference. But if you're talking about a 1 inch by 1 inch block, if you were to put that on your kitchen scale, I don't even think it would register the weight difference between the two.
always offer stuff that's not compressible
All
to
right,
any
as
significant degree.
and I've seen some people actually laminate the outer shell of the foam blocks with resin to make a shell, a hard shell. That's overkill in my book, but whatever.
So there's no lifting difference in the amount of foam. Say you had a 1 inch by 1 inch square, that the lighter foam would lift more than the denser.
It always displaces the same amount of water. Its weight, of course, contributes to the net weight of the vehicle.
So it's like an ice cube.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you think about it that like a 1 inch by 1 inch block of foam is going to have, or object is going to displace the same amount of water. Therefore, it's going to have the same amount of buoyant force. The difference between different materials is it's also got a weight force going down, counteracting it. So foam, a 1 inch block of foam has very little pulling down. So it's going to have a lot of lift. A 1 inch block of steel is going to have a lot pulling down with just that same pulling up.
If you take it to the extreme, you have a square block, a 1 inch block of Ren board and a square block of styrofoam. You put them in the water. The Ren board, just for argument's sake, is going to sink a ½ inch, and the styrofoam is going to stay on top of the water. They both are the same size, but because density is a product of mass and unit volume, one is going to weigh more and sink into the water more than the other one is.
Correct.
Even though it displaces the same amount of water, if you push them both underwater, they're not going to do it on their own.
So the ideal flotation, you know, unit or vessel would actually be hollow, would actually be a vacuum filled hollow chamber, I suppose would be the ideal flotation, because then the weight would be nothing. Yeah. But at any rate, that's taking things to the extreme.
Yeah, that was coming from the guy that couldn't trim his boat.
And on the other end of the spectrum, I mean, we've talked about this before, ballast materials. You know, people have used lead shot, you know, steel, copper, coins, you know, anything that you can think of. Each one of those is quote unquote heavy, but some of them are more dense than others. And so given a certain volume, they'll be more effective than other materials.
Tungsten, plutonium, uranium-238.
There we go. Just need just a little sliver of that in the keel and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's like saying what's heavier, a pound of lead or a pound of feathers. They both weigh a pound, but one's going to fill a room and the other one's going to fill your pocket.
Yeah, precisely. All right. Yeah, that was a good discussion. Nathan, are you taking notes? Or do you take notes afterwards? So
yeah, I'm taking notes, and I'll also go back and take them afterwards also.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, yeah, in the background, Nathan has graciously volunteered and has begun the work on documenting our DiveTribe conversations. And so he is actually making notations about the topics that we discuss, what date, and at what point of the video they occur. So now, instead of you saying, man, there is this guy who was talking about the thing like some time ago, now you'll actually be able to go back in, take a look at this list, and once it becomes a little more populated and I get some time after Subfest, I'll have this posted to the DiveTribe homepage. You will actually just be able to go in and see, oh, there it is. submarine transport cases. That was August 29th. And if I go into that video, it was at 5 minutes and 55 seconds.
That'll be
So
very useful.
huge shout out to Nathan for taking the time to do that and to keep that updated for us. So I'm super excited about that.
But
Yeah,
Bob,
hey,
I
I'm
was
learning a
looking,
lot while I'm doing it, so it's working out
Yeah,
great.
there you go.
Bob, I was looking for your auto trim system. So I went to where it says on your site there for Drydocks, and you scroll to the side to get videos. You hit that, it takes you to YouTube. In the magnifying glass, I hit that, hit in auto trim, and it brought me right to the spot. I didn't have to search a thing.
There you go. That's fine. You know, I think what's happening for me now, sometimes I throw the little gems in my weekly update videos, and those are buried. You know, unless you go back in there and know what to look for, it's really hard. That's why I'm really excited about this new kind of business model. Once I get into that in the new shop, I'm going to have dedicated, segregated videos on a per project basis with a step-by-step how to do this for each project. So I'm really excited. I think as a whole, it'll be much more effective for, you know, the hobby and helping people with their own projects. So fingers are crossed. All right, it's 20 after. I want to see. There's a couple of names I don't recognize. I got Chris V and Dak69. Do we have newcomers here, or are these just names that I don't recognize from the?
Dak 69 is me, Dwayne Curtis.
Oh, it's Dwayne. We don't need to hear from you. Okay, that's fine. What about Chris?
What about me?
No,
My wife says, "What about me?"
We just want to know if you frequented here before, because what we want to make sure is everybody has an opportunity to say hi, do a little introduction, and tell us what you're working on or what you want to work on. Or you could just not.
Work on everything.
You're working on everything.
Yeah, I'm working on a carrier right now.
Oh, okay, all right. And are there submarine projects planned, or are you just like learning about it?
Well, I'm doing learning too, but I'm also working on the Jimmy Carter model.
Mm.
Los Angeles from you earlier in the year.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay, sounds good.
Let me see if I can switch the camera around here real quick.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any video right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can switch my camera around. No, don't want to do that. There we go. Got it now?
Go. Yeah.
That's 11.5 feet long.
Man, and people were complaining about the 10-foot Vallejo.
Mhm.
I've
And then
seen Dwayne's work in a local outfit in North Carolina, and he brings out these monstrous carriers, and they are showstoppers.
and there's two, I'm building two carriers at the same time. There's the two islands for it. The one island has 3 rotating radars on it right now.
Yikes.
And I got my 2 early Burke structures and a friend's early Burke structure.
Are these all for you, like personally?
Well, that one early Burke's not mine, but the spruance in the background's mine. I got 22 hulls
Hoy.
altogether. That's why when I go to the Rocky Mount run in October, I have a trailer that is 16 foot by 7 foot.
Yikes. Well, that is impressive.
I stay busy.
That's good. Everybody needs a
And right
hobby.
now, then like I said, right now I got the Jimmy Carter model I'm doing. I got the Los Angeles class sub, which I'm doing Dallas of it, with the Drydock shoulder. And I also have a 637 class hull.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool.
My wife knows I'm never in a bar.
I think we're all kind of in the same boat. You know, if Ed's not here, because Ed is out visiting his son who just had a baby. And Ed is gonna hang out with them, and then he's gonna drive straight from there up to Subfest. But Ed is that's how he said he justifies his hobby. He's like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't golf. He's like, this is what I do. My wife always knows where I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, maybe next year I'll be attending Subfest. Maybe I'll have a sub running by then.
Yeah, that would be great. We'd love to have you. Well, even if you don't have a submarine, you can come out. It's easier when you don't have one. You can just hop on an airplane.
Yeah, well, I got to work that week,
Oh,
including Saturday.
can't help you. You gotta make priorities in your life, Dwayne. Come on now.
No, I work for the government too, so.
All right, we're.
Bob, this is Chris V. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Ah, great. I finally got it working. I couldn't connect on my iPad, so I was in the middle of switching things around.
Gotcha.
I've
No,
been
you're
here a
good.
couple of times, but I've been just busy over the summer. I'm working on a 1/48 scale Baleo boat.
48. So is that like a scale shipyard hull, or?
Yes, it is. It's a scale shipyard hull.
That should be a fun build. There's lots of scratch building with that one. It's just kind of a plain Jane.
Yes, that's really what's got me slowed down. So
I
starting in October, I'm going to be able to devote some time to it and get back on it.
I have one of those builds queued up in the coming months. I've got a scale shipyard hull sitting in the back ready to build for somebody. Oh, hey, as the DiveTribe crew, I wanted to throw this out to you. I know a lot of you are familiar with 32nd Parallel, right? They're the ones that did that big 32nd scale Baleo that I have. I am working right now on obtaining, and I didn't even know they made this, although I'm not familiar with their offerings. Actually, the first 1/32 Type 9 hull that they ever produced. So if things go well, I'll be getting that into the shop, hopefully right after Subfest. So if you or somebody you know is after a gigantic 8-foot long,
Yeah, that's gigantic.
German Type 9, I believe it was a C, 9C submarine hull, let me know, and we can very likely hook you up.
Anybody know if Lee Upshaw is doing anything?
I have not heard a whisper from him in years.
He's still alive.
Okay.
I know, actually I was because he had his inventory on the Iowa, did he not? Was that I was on the Iowa. I tried asking for him and about him, and nobody was passing anything along. And
A lot of his stuff is on the Iowa right now and at a French shop right now.
yeah.
But right now he's going through some other things right now, which with landlords and everything.
Yeah, no, I understand. I caught whiffs of that in the past. I guess all I can say is wish the best for them. We have precious few vendors in this hobby as it is right now, and it's a tragedy when one of them ends up in a hard place. So,
Well, look at the age of our group.
yeah, I suppose.
It's all in the head.
Maybe what we should do is we should start some weekly DiveTribe workouts. We'll get everybody healthy. We'll get another 10 years on the lifespan. We'll keep the hobby going for another decade. Everybody's good for that. 4:35 a.m. every morning.
Yeah, I got to be 120 to finish what I got started.
A little bit of epoxy and Bondo would do the job.
Take a good sniff every morning, get you up.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, before we end up without the time, as I teased, actually I'm gonna start on a couple things. So Mike wanted to make sure that he had an opportunity to share some progress that he's been making on his Type 7. But before that, I want to jump over to Dave Merriman, and we're going to do a little presentation on painting. And to that end, I'm going to pull up his presentation here, and we're going to plow through this. And Dave's promised to keep it super succinct and to the point, and be done in like 4 minutes, right, Dave?
Who said that?
Okay, here we go. Did I do it? Did it work? Yeah. All right, this is the order that I got them. Am I just starting in the top left corner? And
Well, I sent another one, but this is fine. I just,
this is the second one, damn it.
yeah, really. All right, just put them up one at a time and I'll address them. They're out of order, so what? All right, as a preamble, started out the talk was going to be about spray painting. Well, spray painting is what? It's the application of a coloring agent to render an effect, usually a simple color or a lack of color like white or black or gray. How it goes down is a matter of finesse. If you do it with a paintbrush, you're likely going to wind up with brush strokes and other problems associated with that tool. The method of choice of putting paint down is to spray it on it is a fine mist. That mist can originate in a rattle can like Rust-Oleum or any number of brands of pre-mixed aerosol spray cans. Trouble is, you never know what the chemistry is, regardless of what's printed on the can. Worse yet than that is that if you become accustomed to, let's say, Rust-Oleum red primer, well, it ain't the red primer it was 10 years ago. It's a different formula, and there might be a compatibility problem with overcoats later. As a consequence, you want to know the paint that you're shooting, and if you know it, then you need a means of laying it down. That's where spray painting using a spray gun or a spray brush is the tool of choice. The techniques of laying it down usually involve masking or very judicious use of a spray gun or air gun. Here you see some masking techniques. The objective is to achieve an oil canning effect. A lot of structures, particularly metal-clad structures, eventually show the underlying stringers and frames in the form of a slight dishing between these internal structures and the plating itself. And that's evidenced as sun impingement on the high spots and darker areas where the sun don't shine. You're seeing that started on this particular sail. I'm laying down what is called oil canning. Now it's rather stark here, but it'll later be toned down with a basic black misted on to tone it down. So this is a masking technique which has to be employed if you're going to spray an item and to achieve specific effects. Next shot.
Forward, come on. No, that's just, oh, wait, oh, never mind.
And you see to the left, just about finished with the oil canning. Yes, it's rather stark here, but it will be toned down later. And you see the other sail to the right, which gives you an idea of the approach. You start out with a checker pattern of masking and you just hit the corners, and then you shift your masking and hit the corners on the new areas. And eventually you wind up with a product like you see on the left. Next shot. So we're talking about masking. Now we're actually going to depart from spray painting, but another means of putting markings down is to make a little pin. Like if you need, let's think about boot topping, running the entire perimeter of the waterline, or in this case, the Soviet penchant for using white bars to denote a draft of a submarine. Here, you could either mask it out and spray paint it or break out some letter set markings or decals. Here, it's done very quickly with a pen. Next shot. That pen, incidentally, is loaded with a water-soluble paint, like you're looking at here. This is just Walmart white. It's acrylic, water-soluble acrylic paint. So you mix it up thin, you load the pen, and then you lay down a straight edge, and you literally draw your line. Next shot. And here you see a detail of the pin. It's nothing more than a little lathe project. You turn it to shape, and then you run it through a bandsaw to get the two sides of the blade, and a nut and bolt just to adjust the distance between the blades, so that holds and distributes the paint into a width that you require. A little bit of practice on a test article first, and then you go straight to the model itself. Next shot. Well, that's one of the little tricks to lay down paint. It doesn't involve a spray gun or a brush. Of course, any paint job requires planning. Sometimes no planning is required. You have black on top and red on the bottom, and that's the extent of it. But when you're doing masking to achieve effects, such as the oil canning, your research has to be done. And that's by studying photographs of prototypes and then applying the observed variances from the photographs to orthographic projections, such as the side of the sail here. You go ahead and make your artwork represent what you want, and then you loft from the drawing to the model, and that's how you get your pattern. In this case, oil canning. Next.
On the sail, when I did mine, you have to do that in 4 passes in order to get the complete set of squares. You had to move you have your horizontal tape is left in position, then you move your vertical tape twice, your first application, then your second application, and then once the verticals, it's hard to explain. David, maybe you could explain it better.
No, I think you flopped through it pretty good.
Yeah. It was tricky and took practice.
Yeah, I think he's basically saying you're not going to do it in one pass. You need to do multiple passes in order to achieve.
Yes, 4 passes.
And just out of on that topic, I just picked up a beautiful Typhoon out of the UK, and it's a 1/100th scale, so it's 68 inches in overall length. And the gentleman that did the weathering job on that did that oil canning to each individual anechoic tile, which is I believe they're approximately 3/16 of an inch square.
Yeah. This is the sort of thing that you sit an entire evening working on, and don't drink coffee before doing this stuff. You'll lose your mind. Another application of the painting, and this time with a spray gun, is to mask off markings on the sail. The nice thing about most nautical subjects, particularly military, is that it's usually in a Gothic, Roman Gothic type of font, in that the numbers are easily masked off and then painted. Here you can see some of the white paint has been mixed up, and I always use almost exclusively use the Pache H model spray gun. It's a single action gun, dirt simple, easy to clean. And in small jobs like this, where you just need a little paint, you don't even bother with a cup. You just go ahead and take an eyedropper and put a drop in the gun orifice itself, and there you go. And all you have to do is shoot that, and that's good for an entire set of markings.
Woodland Scenics makes that font and decals, but if you need to put them have a different size than what they make, then you'll have to do this.
That's a good point, Ken, and that's why I had to mask this off on this 1/60th scale model, because there were no woodland scenic markings to that size.
And I noticed
One-
in the today's post or whatever that we have on the forum, you don't use fine line tape. You use the painter's tape.
Yeah, the blue tape, because it's not quite as tacky as the tan tape. And a point, never use the edge as it comes off the roll, because it's ragged and it's got little bugs in it. You lay it down on a clean piece of sheet, and then you take a straight edge and cut a strip away to give you a nice sharp edge. Next shot.
Also for that, guys, I bought a silhouette cutter so I can scale all those, and it has the lettering graphics and everything already built in. That's worked out really nice.
Okay.
And I have another tip for you. In Grumman, when I used to have to do lettering, if you take the tape and you slice off that edge, like you said, because it's ragged, you can cut down to a 1/16 of an inch piece of tape, but you still cannot bend that around a radius. So you get these hole punches, and you can punch a curve out of the tape, take a quarter of it for a quarter turn, a half of it for a half a turn, and you get beautiful radiuses using hole punches of different sizes.
You can make a punch from any diameter of K&S tubing as well.
Exactly.
Good, that's a good point. Here you can see the general layout for a H model Pache single action gun. And here, this is all set up for squirting it just from the nozzle itself without using the paint cup. All you have to do is mix up your paint. In this case, it's watered down pretty much, so it won't overload. And you just dip in your eyedropper, you load up the gun, you take a couple of passes on a test article or on your hand or whatever's handy, and then you go ahead and you spray your work. Next shot.
They make this thing, I never used it. It's called a Cricut. I think it would cut vinyl. And I guess if you can cut the vinyl, you could probably use it as a template for whatever you want, like letters, numbers, or whatever.
Yeah. A lot of people ask, well, why bother with all this when you can buy a spray can? Well, the trouble is that at the end of the day, you've painted a model with whatever mediums you've got. Like, you not only have the basic colors and the sprayed on oil canning, and then you have other agents for weathering. You might have artist oils in there. You might have chalks, pastels, all sorts of different mediums. Well, the consequence is that the overall sheen of the model is varied, and it looks like hell. You want a uniform sheen. Now, what that is just a reflectance of the surface, and you want it to be uniform of this reflectance, the degree. And that means an overcoat of a clear coat that is of the sheen desired. Now, we don't want any gloss looking submarines because it looks like a toy. You want a flat, in other words, no real reflectance from the surface itself, but you want this clear coat to render all the underlaying colors and mediums of the same sheen, and that's where you flatten a clear coat. You can't do that with a rattle can. Yeah, you can buy your Krylon that says satin finish. Well, that's fine. Is it chemically compatible with the stuff you've got on the model? You don't know. And you're going to find out to your horror, some of those agents are going to crinkle up and ruin the finish because the chemistry is not compatible with your clear coat. So you go with something you trust. In my case, it's automotive refinishing paints, and specifically urethane 2 parts. And nowadays they call it 2K, but you actually have to catalyze this paint. You take this clear coat, You catalyze it with a proper agent, and then you add a separate flattening agent, which is terribly expensive, but it permits you to change the sheen of the mix. And that's the last coat to go down to a model. And it has to be spray applied. There's no other way to do it. Again, you're looking at the Pache H model, and you're looking at what I used to use until I ran out recently, the DuPont Chroma Clear system with a flattening agent. Next shot. The only time I ever use a double action gun is when I'm pissed off at the world and Elias sent me to the couch or something, because nobody in their right mind should be using a double action gun in this game. It's stupid. It's hard to clean. Unless you're doing t-shirts, don't bother with a double action gun. Go with a stupid Pache H model. Next shot. Stupid double action gun. Next shot. And here you got the H model, which is suitable for some of the inside cut work on this rather large model, the flying submarine. For the gross work, you want to use what's called a touch-up gun. Now, the automotive trade, a touch-up gun to those guys is a small gun. To us, it's a howitzer. Next shot. Said howitzer, touch-up gun, good for the big jobs. You guys with big sea views, hello.
Or big aircraft carriers.
I just baited you, Frank. Get off mute.
That's what I use.
There you go. There you go. And if you really, really want to use the Krylon and the rattle can stuff, I always decant the paint. And what does that mean? It means getting the paint out of the rattle can so you can load it into your spray gun where you have control. Now, one can imagine the problems you might have decanting a pressurized can of paint. Next shot. Next shot. Here I've decanted paint in a clear coat from Rust-Oleum cans. All you need to paint are the three primary colors, black, white, and a clear coat. With those three paints at your disposal and a color wheel, you can make any color you want. There's no need to go out there and go to the hobby shop and get one of their bizarro lists of different colors. Make your own. Next shot. So here I am punching a nail into a pressurized can of paint. What could possibly go wrong? This is done outside, away from the cars. Next shot. Here you have some decanted primer. It already been transferred into a holding bottle ready for use in the spray gun. And all the vital tools needed. A sharp needle, a hammer, and balls about the size of bowling balls.
What I found to decant is Dunkin' Donuts makes great straws. They're bigger in diameter. And just hold you cut the straw at an angle, a 45-degree angle. You put one end of it in your jar, one end of it against the nozzle and push. Just be careful. I put a paper towel over it in case I miss, and it just runs right down the straw into the jar.
But what the fun is that?
Hey, while we're talking about this, and I don't know if you're planning on doing this later, a lot of people use, including myself, use rattle cans. Two things I had a question about for you who probably know a lot more about this than me. In a rattle can, you've got paint and you've got propellant. Can you tell us how that actually works inside? Is it liquid propellant? Is it gas propellant? How does that work?
It's liquid, which at its high pressure remains liquid, but as soon as the pressure drops, when you push down on the nozzle, it used to be Freon, and now it's any number of things, but it changes from the liquid state to a gas on drop of pressure, a consequence of pushing down the nozzle. When it flashes to gas, it maintains the pressure in the can, which forces the paint out at the nozzle where it's atomized and then sprayed onto the subject. So what is in the can is a liquid, but only in that state at that pressure and that temperature.
And so when you rupture the can, the propellant boils off, right? Is that what happens right away?
That's right. And it continues to boil off after you've decanted the paint into the jar, because if you would cap that jar 5 minutes later, particularly if it's glass, it will explode because it's still off gassing. So when you decant, this is a good point. I'm glad you raised it, Bob. When you decant into a container, leave the lid loose overnight so it can off gas the remaining pressurized, well, if you will, propellant that's still in the liquid state and boiling off.
Cool.
I had a can of Rust-Oleum that was good for priming. I use it for priming brass. And the last time I used it might have been 5-7 years ago. It was no more propellant in there. So I took a nail, popped the nail in there, make sure that there, a tiny hole, make sure there was no more propellant in there. And then I opened up a couple of holes in it and just poured it out into a jar so that I can reuse it in a spray brush, so that worked out pretty well.
What I do is when I decant, I take the thing outside, of course, and I punch a small hole at the top so it doesn't froth up enough to spray everybody. So while it's still vertical, I put a jar over the top and then quickly invert it, and the pressure in the can pushes the paint into the decanted jar.
Right.
And that's an acquired art.
I'd imagine. All right, what is with the toothpaste?
Okay, the toothpaste, when we're talking about shooting things, typically it's paint, but in my case, sometimes I'll shoot a masking agent. And the ideal masking agent is either polyvinyl alcohol or toothpaste cut with water. Now, so I can see this very thick masking agent made from toothpaste and water, I put in a little bit of food coloring, in this case black, so that when I apply it to a model to act as a mask, I can see it. So I know if I'm laying down too much or too little. So here's some toothpaste going into a container of water that's already been mixed with a little bit of food coloring. This will be a masking agent that will be sprayed in a rather exotic looking spray tool just for laying down a splatter effect. Next shot. Okay, that's just the Nate's model being used. Next shot. Now you're seeing, that's too bad, it's too small.
That's what she said.
Yeah. Or I did, this is what I did was I modified, there you go. I modified just an air gun. And I put this little gadget on it that holds the masking agent, and it permits me that when I press the trigger, the air blows, and then Venturi pulls the air and a portion of the masking agent out of that nozzle and onto the work. Before making something like this, I typically scull it out, usually on the toilet, and then I run over to the shop and make a drawing. And the drawing will validate what will and won't work. And at that point, you get down to work and you actually make the device. Here it was simply just coming up with a collar to hold that little bucket of masking agent in front of the nozzle. And it became quite effective. It's used on larger models to give a splatter effect, which most of the time is used to represent marine growth on the below waterline portions of a hull. Next shot.
And just to for my own clarity there, the masking agent, it basically is viscous enough it doesn't flow out on its own, right? It's that Venturi effect that kind of draws it out.
Very good. That's right. If it was water, it would just pour out, but it's viscous enough where it won't. It actually has to be pulled out by Venturi effect.
So I guess that would be the perfect way of determining whether you've mixed it to the proper consistency. Is you put it in there. If it pisses or piddles out, it's too thin, and you got to mix it a little thicker.
Well, I found that if I have 3 different mixes of the masking agent, very thin, medium, and very thick, I can get different splatter patterns. And so,
cool, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why you experiment on a test article before committing any work to your model. You make all your mistakes on the test article, and once you got things dialed in, you can go straight to your work and basically have a trouble-free application.
But you use this for bigger models, larger models, right? Because I think from what I've seen on the forum was that you use either a sponge, a stiff brush, or flicking it with a toothbrush to get that effect.
All 3, sometimes 5 different techniques for laying it down to get different patterns. Give me another shot.
I'm working on it. Hold on.
Brown. There you go. If you can enlarge that a little bit. Here you see what was involved. It was just a real quick solder job. And that is the tool for laying down the mask in a splat pattern. Next shot. And now here I'm using it on a 196 skipjack, but I'm using the medium thick material to get the desired size of the splatter. And it was just, press the trigger, shoot, wait for the masking material to dry, and then lay down some paint. And then after that had dried, you hit it with a wet sponge that removes the water-soluble masking agent, which is toothpaste, which is water-soluble, of course, and you get the desired pattern. Next shot.
I think Bob put a video out where he used salt.
Yep.
Yeah, salt. So it was called salt chipping. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that all the rest of these pictures are just. I think that's it. That's the end of your.
I'm done.
You kind of, Dave, you kind of alluded to why using a rattle can sucks. Because if you paint it with a rattle can, and you're going to get anywhere between 10 to 15,000 stick paint. If you multiply that by 48 scale, that means you put a ½ inch of paint on that real submarine. So the airbrush brings it down to kind of like the right scale.
Right. Yeah.
I am personally less worried about that than I am about the random spray that gets generated when you use the nozzles on a rattle can. So I've used rattle cans extensively. You guys have seen me in my videos, particularly for large models. But you need to make sure, just like when you're like a professional auto painter, not that I'm anywhere remotely close to that, don't aim the rattle can at your model and depress the nozzle. You're going to get this like spatter that comes out and makes big globs, and then you're gonna spray, and then when you take it off, it's going to do the same thing. So
you do that with the touch-up can too.
Yeah, so you aim off the model, depress, and sweep across the boat. Once you're past it, release. It'll minimize, not eliminate, it'll minimize this random splattery, nasty, gobby stuff. And yeah, go ahead, Dave.
What you have to grab a hold of is that there's a lot of nuances to spray painting. The viscosity of the paint, the pressure of the air pushing the paint onto the work, the distance from the work, the angle to the work, your rate of travel of the gun as you're moving it. all these things are acquired talents. And that's why you got to work on a test article first. A model you hate, you're never going to finish. That's the one that gets the majority of your attention. That's where you learn. And every time I'm supposed to be really good at this shit, fine. But I'm really good at it because all of my mistakes are hidden in the shop on a test article.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing though how the test article always comes better than when you get to the actual one? That's when you screw up.
I didn't say life is fair.
On the Rust-Oleum paint, I used the Rust-Oleum and decanted it for my skipjack. The party boats that I'm working on, I just use them straight from the rattle can. And I went back to Home Depot, and they now have the spray nozzle where you can adjust the size of the pattern of the spray on it. I didn't buy one of those, which to me, it sounds like a real pain in the ass, but it's a nozzle with just 5 different on it, 5 different nozzles, and you just rotate the top. So I don't know how bad those are going to be.
Bug spray.
Interesting. Yeah. Well,
But yet if I went back to my old, other Home Depot, it had the normal spray top on them.
yeah, no, this is good stuff. I actually learned a lot down there. That was really cool. I like that a lot. You know, again, airbrush is always going to do the best job, and for some people it's an intimidating tool. You know, you need to get one, and you just need to play with it. You just need to spray everything and vary the distance, you know, the speed, the air pressure. You know, there's lots of different variables, like Dave said. Just practice on something you're not going to mess up, and it will really make a big difference in your boat. I use it for weathering a lot extensively. If any of you guys are doing fleet boats, to add you know, subtle shading, you know, some granularity to break up a solid color with some granularity with colors, to add exhaust streaking, you know, from those diesel exhaust ports and that kind of thing. It's a really valuable tool, and it's just a matter of trying it. And to his point, I'm still using the exact airbrush that he's using. I got it from my grandmother when I was 14 years old, and it is still working perfectly. I love it.
I have one that's over 40 years old, the Type H, and it is still keeps going, no issues. I restore World War II vehicles, and I have quite a few of them, and I show them. And I do all my work, including frame up, and do the painting as well. And the thing about the rattle can that always irks the crap out of me is they spit, especially when you don't want them to spit. And sit there, and you can start in Texas, hit your product. As soon as you come back for the second swipe, glob, black. And there is your whole fender is absolutely destroyed. The only other thing worse than that is a bug when it comes into my shop and aims for my fender and lands right there, right as it's drying, and I can't do a damn thing about it. I want to kill them, but you know, I mean, I've airbrushed this Type 7, and I found that with the different paints, that when you're using the H, going on very light and getting that first coat on is critical to getting that tack coat before you start getting happy putting down your final coat of paint and getting that gloss coming back on until it goes into a dull finish. But I enjoy my gun. In fact, I rigged it up so that I have 2 now coming off the same compressor, so I don't have to change guns if I'm doing multiple color projects.
Yep.
If you want
Dave, you said,
if you want a good
Dave,
test article, go ahead.
Dave, use a test article. Would be a PVC tubing be good?
That's what I was just about to say. Before I started painting my skipjack, I went to Lowe's or Home Depot. They sold a 2-foot section of like 4 or 5-inch PVC pipe. I bought that. It was $11. Okay, I sanded it down with 220 paper, wiped it down with acetone to get all the lettering off, spray painted the thing black, and then from there I divided it up in sections for different techniques to use. You know, I sprayed the top half black and the bottom half the waterline, you know, the bottom paint red, and just divided it up into like 4 different sections and did the different effects on that test article. I also put little feet on the thing so that the thing doesn't roll away.
That's a good idea. Yeah, good stuff. And we could probably go, we could probably have a whole DiveTribe just talking about, you know, airbrush settings, you know, color matching, or not color matching. I will quickly say, and Dave's, I think he's done a really cool article about this in the past. I seem to remember, or somebody did. Black submarines aren't black.
Right.
They are not black. If you spray paint your modern nuclear submarine gloss black, I will reach through the camera and choke you down. There's nothing that makes a submarine look worse than pure black gloss paint. Like David said, it's like a Walmart toy at that point. But go online, take a look at any modern boat on the surface. You know, it's matte, non-reflective, and it's a dark, like charcoal gray color. Even when you get up close, it's black, like you would think it'd be black. But that distance tones down the color. And what we're trying to do is replicate the scale appearance. You may go to that boat and pull a color card out and perfectly color match it, but it's not going to look right when you paint it and you look at a model from a distance. So do what looks right, not what is right.
It's
that makes sense.
referred to as scale effect.
Scale effect.
The apparent lightening of the color with size.
There you go. So,
Dave,
yeah.
I know you've been around. I know you've been around a few subs. I know coming on, they had like after painting in Drydock, like that purplish tint to the black when they're in Drydock. You know what I mean? After they got painted.
That happened around the turn of the century, and when they actually started mixing the anti-foul red with black on that intermediate area between center line and water line. I think that's no longer in vogue.
Cool stuff. All right. Mike, I got a question / request for you. We're at a little over an hour. Or would you be okay if we brought your topic up at the next DiveTribe?
Sure, no problem.
Awesome. All right. One thing that I wanted to bring up before well, 2 things. Obviously, Subfest is coming up. Everything is looking awesome. We have over 50 registered attendees for the event. 20 registered skippers. I would not be surprised if we breached 100 boats at the event. We'll see. Some people will be more, some people will be less than the average. But you can still participate even if you don't go. You can donate to the event, and for every $10 you get a raffle ticket. There's awesome prizes. If you don't know what's there, if you reach out to me or another person you know who is going, I call them a raffle buddy. They can let you know what's on the sub swap table, because people are going to be bringing stuff to sell, and they'll let you know what's on the raffle table in case you win. So you can pick what's that. We're going to be a little different this year. When your ticket is picked, you get to pick off the table. We're not pulling it up, because some people might already have 4 Bronco Type 23 kits. They don't need another one, right? So it'll be kind of like the Santa thing at Christmas time, but people can't steal your gift. So that's what's going on. That's next week. I'm gone from Wednesday through till Monday, and then back in the shop after that. Last thing I want to leave you with, it's kind of a unique deal. The Mark 12 torpedo was involved by installed in surface ships. World War II was used through that, and then into the 50s, and I think maybe even into the early 60s. But at any rate, the torpedoes back then used these really cool machined gyros for control. And one of my customers here in Texas is offering one of these really cool gyros from a Mark 12 torpedo
Mark 14.
No, yeah, maybe I'm talking on my butt. Hold on. It's
There-
on my website. If you take a look,
Well, listen, this torpedoman's going to tell you. During the Second World War, there was the Mark 13, the Mark 15, and the Mark 14 that were steam fished and used the mechanical gyro.
well, I'm looking at the box, and the box says Mark 12 Mach 3, serial
That was-
number
That was a
42987.
World War I era torpedo and was used at the beginning of the war, but very limited.
Well, this also comes with an inspection certificate dated 10/22/1957.
And it
I
says
don't know.
Mark 12 torpedo or Mark 12 gyro.
Maybe it's a Mark 12 gyro.
Yeah,
Okay, it's a Mark 12 gyro. Anyhow,
Where is that under which shop?
it's right on the homepage under featured.
Oh.
And I think it's also in the bargain bin, but it is cool as hell. I'm just saying, I could spend an hour just like spinning it and moving it around. It's in pristine shape. It's coming in the original shipping container that it came in. So if you're a collector of memorabilia of that nature, that is there for your viewing and or purchasing pleasure.
I work in a steam shop on the Gilmore, and there's a very cruel trick I could describe later what you could do with a spun up gyro.
Tell me off camera so I don't have any liability. All right, any last things before I let you guys go? No, do you guys want to stay and play, or are you good partying till next time?
I go.
That's good. A very good meeting as always, Bob.
Yeah, this was good. This was fun. Great work, David. I love that. That's cool. And then we
Excellent.
had-
Thanks
we
for
had-
everything. Great
had some-
presentations.
Yeah, we had some good conversations up front too.
Excellent job there, David.
Sir,
All right, guys, have a
Great,
great
thank you.
rest of your weekend. We will be reporting from Subfest next week, and if we don't see you before then, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And
Bob, a quick question before you go. It's quick.
oh my God, now I'll never know.
So,
Oh no, Frank, you broke up, buddy.
the levelers that I ordered said the. Oh, okay. I'll text you.
Okay, yeah, do that. All right, we'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Hey, everyone.